the night I found out. It was raining. Not a dramatic, cinematic rain. Not the kind that comes with thunder and lightning and all the theatrical accompaniments that grief deserves. It was just a quiet, persistent drizzle, the kind that fogs up windows and makes the whole world feel like it's behind frosted glass. I remember noticing it because I had left my car windows cracked open, and somewhere in the back of my mind, even as my entire life was collapsing inward, I thought, I should go close those windows. That's the strange thing about the worst moments of your life. The mundane refuses to pause for them. My name is James. I am, or I was, depending on which version of myself you're asking, a relatively ordinary man, 41 years old, civil engineer. I design drainage systems for a living, which my wife, Nina, used to joke was the least romantic profession in the world. You literally spend your days figuring out where the garbage water goes, she'd say, and then she'd laugh. That laugh of hers, the one that started low in her chest and built into something that filled every corner of a room. I fell in love with that laugh before I fell in love with anything else about her. We had been married for 9 years, together for 11. We had a house with a yard that was perpetually in need of mowing, a golden retriever named Biscuit who had separation anxiety and had destroyed 3 sofas over the course of his life, and a daughter named Lily who was 7 years old and currently obsessed with a cartoon about a girl who could talk to horses. We were, to every outward observer, a normal family, a good family even. I had no idea that I was the only one who believed that. It started, or rather, the part one became aware of started, on a Tuesday in October. Nina had fallen asleep on the couch after dinner. This wasn't unusual. She worked long hours as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company, and the exhaustion was always real and always visible. She'd come home, eat whatever I'd cooked, help Lily through her homework, and then slowly deflate against the couch cushions like a tire losing air. I'd cover her with the throw blanket, kiss her forehead, and carry Lily to bed. That Tuesday, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I wasn't snooping. I want to say that clearly, not because it changes anything that follows, but because it's the truth, and the truth feels important to hold on to when everything else gets muddy. I wasn't suspicious, wasn't checking up on her. I simply reached for it automatically, the way you reach for a ringing phone, the way you do something 1,000 times without thinking, intending to silence it so it wouldn't wake her. The screen lit up with a preview notification. When your husband falls asleep, I can't wait to kiss you. No name, just a number I didn't recognize, and those 15 words arranged in that particular order, carrying the specific weight of something secret and intimate and entirely, catastrophically, not meant for me to see. I put the phone down. I sat there for what felt like a very long time. The television was still on, some home renovation show, a couple arguing cheerfully about open-plan kitchens, and Nina was breathing slowly beside me, her face completely peaceful. Biscuit was asleep on the rug. The rain tapped against the window. And I sat in all of that ordinary domesticity and felt something crack open in the center of my chest. I didn't wake her. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I needed time to convince myself I'd misread it, that there was some innocent explanation, that my mind was twisting a harmless message into something sinister. People do that. They catastrophize. I was always aware of being someone who catastrophized. I went upstairs. I lay in our bed, the bed we had chosen together from a furniture store 6 years ago, the one Nina had taken 45 minutes to decide on because she was particular about mattress firmness, and I stared at the ceiling. I ran through the possibilities methodically, the way I approached engineering problems, trying to be systematic and rational. It could be a friend playing a joke. It could be something from a game or an app. It could be a wrong number, a message intended for someone else. It could be. I stopped lying to myself somewhere around 2 in the morning. Because here's the thing, even before that message, there had been things I hadn't let myself look at directly. Not suspicions, exactly, more like shadows at the edge of my peripheral vision that disappeared whenever I turned toward them. Nina had been distracted for months, present in the room but absent from it in some fundamental way. She'd started being protective of her phone, angling the screen away when she texted, taking calls in other rooms. She'd been working late more frequently. There had been a weekend conference in the spring that she'd been oddly secretive about, and when I'd asked how it went, she'd given me a 3-sentence answer and changed the subject. I had looked at all of these things and chosen not to see them. Because seeing them meant I'd have to do something about them, and I loved my wife, and I loved my life, and I loved the version of myself that existed inside that life. The version who had a complete family, who came home to someone who knew him, who wasn't alone. Over the next 4 days, I became a different kind of person. A quieter one, more watchful. I did things I am not proud of. I checked our phone bill online, pulling up the call logs with shaking hands. There was a number that appeared repeatedly, dozens of times over the past 4 months. Long calls in the evenings, shorter ones during the day. I searched the number. It came back to a man named Tom, a name so ordinary it almost made me laugh, who worked in the communications department at a company that partnered with Nina's firm. They would have met through work. Of course they would have. That's always how it happens, isn't it? Not some dramatic stranger, but someone adjacent, someone who already existed in the infrastructure of your life. I looked at his professional profile online. He was 44. He had an easy smile and the kind of face that probably photographed well. He had 2 kids and, presumably, a wife somewhere who was also sleeping while this was happening. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while. The hardest part wasn't the anger. Anger, I discovered, is actually the easy part. It's clean and loud, and it gives you something to do. It wants to smash things, to confront, to demand. Anger has a clear direction. The hardest part was the grief. And beneath the grief, the humiliation. And beneath the humiliation, the deep, corrosive self-questioning that is the real damage betrayal does. The voice that starts asking, not just what did she do, but why wasn't I enough? What did I miss? What is wrong with me that this happened? How did I not know? How did I sit across from her at dinner every night and not see it? That voice is relentless. It doesn't sleep. I went to work every day. I sat through meetings and reviewed plans and answered emails. I came home and cooked dinner and helped Lily with her reading homework. I watched Nina move through our house, and I looked for signs that she felt the weight of what she was carrying. Some crack in the surface, some indication that she was struggling with the guilt of it. Sometimes I thought I saw it, a moment of distance in her eyes, a pause before she answered a simple question. Whether that was real or whether I was projecting, I genuinely couldn't tell. She reached for my hand one evening while we were watching television, and I let her take it, and I sat there holding my wife's hand while knowing what I knew, and that is one of the loneliest feelings I have ever experienced. I told my brother Kevin on a Friday afternoon. He was the only person I told. We met at a bar neither of us usually went to, neutral territory, the way people choose meeting places for difficult conversations. And I told him everything, speaking in a flat, careful voice, the way you speak when you're afraid that if you let any feeling into the words, they'll all fall apart. Kevin listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back and looked at me for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Are you going to confront her?" "I don't know." He ordered us both another drink. He didn't offer advice, which was the right thing. He didn't tell me to leave her, or to fight for the marriage, or that everything happens for a reason. He just sat with me in it, and that was more valuable than anything he could have said. Walking back to my car afterward, I felt slightly less like I was drowning, not because anything had changed, but because one other person in the world now knew that I was struggling, and there is something about being witnessed in pain that makes it fractionally more bearable. I confronted Nina 11 days after seeing the message. Lily was at a sleepover at her best friend's house. The timing wasn't planned, but when I found myself home alone with Nina on a Saturday evening, I understood that this was the moment, that there would never be a right moment, so this one would have to do. We were in the kitchen. She was making tea. I watched her from the doorway for a moment, the familiar slope of her shoulders, the way she always forgot to wait for the kettle to fully boil, the small scar on her left hand from a cooking accident the year we moved in together, and then I said her name. Something in my voice made her turn immediately. "Who is Tom?" I asked. The colour left her face. Not gradually, all at once, like a light switching off. She put down the mug she was holding and gripped the counter edge with both hands, and she looked at me, and in the space between my question and her answer, the marriage as I had known it ended. I could feel it end. It was like watching a building begin to fall, that moment before the actual collapse, when you can see from the lean and the crumble that what comes next is inevitable. "James," she said. "Don't," I said. "Please don't say my name like that. Just tell me who he is." She told me. Not everything at once. It came in stages, the way confessions always do. Each layer revealed only when pressed, like excavating something buried. They had met 8 months ago. It had started as a friendship, which is what everyone always says. It had become something more around 6 months ago. She said it had been emotional more than anything else. And then, when I looked at her steadily, she corrected herself. She said she was sorry. She said it multiple times, in different arrangements of words, but always arriving at the same word: sorry. I listened to all of it. I did not shout. I don't know if that surprised her. I think she had expected shouting. Instead, I felt very still, the way you feel in the eye of something. When she stopped talking, I said, "Did you love him?" She didn't answer immediately, and the pause itself was an answer. "I don't know," she finally said. "I thought I might. I don't think so. Not the way—" She stopped. "Not the way what?" I asked. She didn't finish the sentence. She was crying by then, and I remember noticing her tears with a kind of detached curiosity, the way you notice things when you're in shock, clinically, from a distance. "I need to leave the house," I said. "I'll be back before Lily comes home tomorrow." And I left. I drove for 3 hours that night, not toward anywhere, just driving, taking turns without deciding on them, letting the road unspool in the headlights while the radio played songs I wasn't listening to. At some point, I ended up parked outside a diner on the edge of town, and I went in and ordered coffee and eggs I didn't really eat, and I sat in a vinyl booth at midnight and tried to figure out who I was going to be now. Because that's what no one tells you about betrayal. Everyone talks about what you're going to do: stay or leave, forgive or not forgive, fight for the marriage or walk away. Those are the questions the world asks you, and they're urgent questions, real questions. But underneath them is a quieter and more fundamental question: who are you now? The story I had told about myself included being someone who had a good marriage, who was loved and chosen, who had built something real and lasting with another person. That story was gone. And whatever came next, reconciliation or separation, healing or moving on, I was going to have to build a new story. Not patch the old one, write a new one. I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But readiness, I was learning, is something of a myth. You don't become ready for the hard things. You just eventually do them anyway. The weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. Nina and I existed in the house together in a state of suspended uncertainty. We were civil. We had to be for Lily's sake. We ate dinner as a family. We handled logistics. We passed each other in hallways with careful politeness, like strangers sharing temporary accommodations, which in a way was exactly what we were. She ended things with Tom. She told me this, and I had no way of verifying it, and I chose, for reasons I'm still not entirely sure of, to believe her. She asked if we could try counseling. I said I needed time before I could agree to anything. I started running. I don't know why. I had never been a runner, had always found it monotonous, but something about the physical effort of it helped. An hour each morning, alone, just the sound of my own breathing and the rhythm of feet against pavement. It became the part of the day that belonged entirely to me. The part where I wasn't anyone's husband or anyone's father or anyone's colleague, just a body moving through the world, trying to figure out what came next. I called my mother once. I didn't tell her what had happened. That felt like too many people knowing, too many conversations I wasn't ready to have. But I talked to her for an hour about nothing in particular, and something about the sound of her voice made me feel like I was 12 years old and the world still made sense. I'm grateful for that phone call. 6 weeks after the confrontation, I agreed to couples therapy. Let me be honest, I did not go in believing it would work. I went because I had a 7-year-old daughter who loved both her parents and deserved every possible effort before we turned her world upside down. I went because I'd made vows, and I took them seriously, and I needed to be able to tell myself later that I had tried everything. I did not go because I was hopeful. Our therapist was a quiet, precise woman named Dr. Elaine, who had a way of asking simple questions that opened up things you hadn't realized were closed. She didn't take sides. She didn't tell us what to do. She did something harder and more useful. She made us say the real things out loud in front of each other, the things we'd been talking around for months or years, and she made us actually listen to the answers. In those sessions, Nina said things I hadn't known, that she had been lonely inside our marriage for a long time, that she'd tried to say so and hadn't felt heard, that she'd made a catastrophically wrong choice in how she'd dealt with that loneliness, and she knew it, and she would spend the rest of her life wishing she'd chosen differently. In those sessions, I said things I hadn't known either, that I had been avoiding real closeness for years, that I was better at maintaining the surface of things than examining what was underneath, that I had, in some ways, made myself easy to drift away from. These are not comfortable revelations. They are not the kind of things you want to hear about yourself. But they were true, and there's a particular kind of relief that comes with the truth, even when the truth is hard, the relief of no longer having to pretend. I want to tell you that everything was repaired, that we went to therapy and did the work and fell back in love and lived happily forward, the marriage stronger for having survived the fire. The real answer is more complicated. We are still together, Nina and I. We have chosen, daily and with full awareness of how difficult that choice is, to try to rebuild. There are days when I look at her and feel something warm and familiar, the echoes of the person I fell in love with. There are other days when I catch the right angle of light and something cold moves through me, and I have to sit with that coldness without letting it swallow me. Trust, I've learned, is not a switch. It doesn't flip back on. It rebuilds the way broken bones rebuild, slowly, imperfectly, creating scar tissue that is in some ways stronger than the original, and in other ways never quite the same. There are fracture lines. There will always be fracture lines. What I can tell you is this. I know myself better now than I did before that rain-wet Tuesday evening when a phone screen lit up and changed everything. I know what I can endure. I know what I need from a partnership and how to say it out loud instead of hoping it will somehow be understood. I know that the life I want is one I have to actively, consciously choose, not a thing that happens to you while you're mowing the lawn and helping with homework and assuming everything is fine. Lily is 8 now. She still loves the cartoon about the girl who talks to horses. Biscuit destroyed his 4th sofa last month, and we are considering whether he or the furniture must go. The yard still needs mowing. The ordinary life continues. I continue inside it, different, changed, more awake than I was before. Grief has a way of eventually exhausting itself if you let it run its full course instead of trying to outrun it. The mornings when I couldn't get out of bed eventually became mornings when I could. The weight that sat on my chest for months gradually, imperfectly lifted. I am not the same man who reached for that phone without thinking. That man is gone. But I don't entirely mourn him. He was too comfortable, too willing to look away from difficult things. The man I am now looks at things directly, even when they're hard to see, especially then. Some nights, when the house is quiet and Lily is asleep and Nina is beside me and the ordinary world is doing its quiet, persistent thing, I think about that moment. The screen lighting up, the words arranging themselves, the world splitting cleanly into before and after. I think about how much I wanted, in that moment, for it not to be true. And I think about how, in the long run, the things we most want not to be true are sometimes the very things we most needed to know. The rain is still out there, somewhere, tapping against windows. The car windows in my mind are perpetually cracked open. And I am here, awake in the dark, knowing what I know, and choosing, anyway, to stay.